let's talk about a couple things. This is what was happening yesterday. Let me turn off the trades here so that we're not giving away any of the build. Yesterday we opened up. We pushed higher to take out the high of the previous session. We didn't do a very good job of accepting those prices. And then we ended up, if you guys were on the screens, you'll know we just got very negative. The market tanked. We had a pretty nice pullback here. We went for some continuation, and overall, very negative day. We covered a lot of ground to the downside. And primarily coming into this, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. Here in this area, this is a microcomposite value area. So one of my primary things I was looking for, that is, if we were pushing away from that value, wanted to be very careful to the short side and potentially look to join the longs. The upward target was not as strong. And then if we were able to hold on to value, looking to take this down primarily to the point of control, which would have been about the 55.05 area right in here, and then potentially to the other side of value. But that seemed like a stretch. This microcomposite area was very wide. We also had the news events coming up today, and then we have some very busy news on Friday. So wasn't sure if we were going to maybe stall out a little bit in front of those events, but my goodness, we didn't end up stalling out. So what ended up happening in the trade I'd like to focus on, if I can turn on the trades that I took yesterday, ended up having a small trade here. Wasn't able to do anything in the morning for the first part. We had some news coming out at 10 o'clock, jolts. So I was kind of waiting on that a little bit. Ended up taking a small position down to that 05 area, like I was just mentioning. And then beyond that, as this started to push down, given what we had done at the high, I was expecting that we might be going down and trying to challenge the low of the previous day. It seemed like a bit of a stretch, and I had a couple targets on the way down as well. And because of the news event and how this was shaping up, there wasn't a good spot to get involved until we got to the value area low. At the time that this was shaping up, right in here was the developing days value area low. So as we tested into that, we got a little messy around it, which is common. So I was waiting for this to set up right. Ended up initiating a short, took off the short what looks like very quickly. It happened very fast, but it was right in front of this lower low here. And it was, around 2 points. A lot of times that first scale out is around there for me anyway. And then we just tanked, and the bottom fell out of this. We went through another target that I had and went straight to what was my kind of extended target very quickly. Ended up exiting the trade at that low of the previous session. And with no break, we ended up just trucking down a significant farther amount. I was flat on the trade and then missed this other portion of the move, and wasn't able to be on board with that. Okay, now this in of itself was a great trade. We talked a couple sessions ago during the Thoughts for Your Thoughts segment around the law of averages and how this shows up in our trading. And this is a perfect example of sometimes we're in these trades that just work out better than we would expect in kind of a spectacular way. This isn't the normal thing, but sometimes this happens, and we don't know when it's going to happen. This would be an example of that. And as this was happening, I think something that's interesting to point out, when I'm in this type of a position where I'm in a trade, maybe it goes to my target and I get flat, to see it then just continue and go for another big push. When I see that happening, I actually feel nothing. I don't feel any kind of stress. I don't feel any kind of FOMO. I don't feel any type of a way about that. But on the flip side, if a trade like this was to work out and come down into this area and not go for that extra leg, but reverse on me, and that unrealized P&L would start to disappear, this is something that would really bother me. And this is something that would cause me to potentially go on tilt, or just to feel a certain way, and to not be in a good headspace. And I would be interested, especially those of you here that are here now, to hear what side of the dynamic you're on with this, because as traders, we're all individuals, but we're not approaching the market in completely unique ways where there's no overlap. And generally, I find that we all are going to fall into one of two buckets here, where being in a position to exit a trade and to see that go farther would drive you crazy, and it would make you feel a certain way, and potentially start you on a bit of a spiral if you don't catch that. But to see a position working and to have some of that unrealized P&L erase on you, that's not as big of a deal. You don't feel a certain way about that. And then there's the flip side of it, which is the side that I'm on, where to see that unrealized P&L start to erase is something that is very tough for me. And then to see something go on further than I was expecting it to go is something that I'm completely neutral against. And I would be interesting if you've observed this on yourself. which side that you fall on, because there's a very good chance you're going to be on one side of that. And there's not really a right or a wrong here, but it is important to know this about yourself and to make sure that the approach that you're doing and the method that you're doing is leaning into that as a strength, to make sure that you're not in a position where you are overstaying in trades, staying in the market longer, and having a lot of unrealized P&L get erased on you and driving you crazy and causing you undue stress, or to be in positions where you're constantly taking off trades, missing moves where you want to stay in the market longer and causing you stress. And not that there's a right or wrong which things we need to do here, but it's something that we should know about ourselves, that we probably have an aptitude one way or the other, and to make sure that we're leaning into that as to be a part of our strength, and to make sure that we're not on the flip side, and to be firmly aware of the pros and cons of either one. If you are in a position where you want to not let these trades roll back on you, and you want to make sure you're capturing moves, and you want to have that higher win rate, then this is going to happen. And there are going to be plenty of times where the trade goes further and you're not taking advantage of that. That's the pro and con of wanting to have that higher win rate and not having a larger portion of your trades roll back on you. And if you're in that position where you want to be capturing those larger moves and you want to be in the market longer and keep that exposure going, there are going to be more times where it rolls back on you and your win rate is going to suffer. And you'll be having a smaller win rate, but you'll be having much larger wins, or at least those larger wins will happen more often. Where if you want that higher win rate, these outsized wins are going to be happening fewer and farther between. Again, not particularly a right or a wrong, and you can do well with either one. But you definitely want to make sure that you understand which side of the equation you're on with this, that you're leaning into that, and that you understand that that's the dynamic of the distance and how long you stay in the market and your win rate, how those things are always going to have a negative association. And also to make sure that you're not just doing it randomly taking trades off early and missing out, randomly staying in trades longer, but making sure that it's actually a part of your process and a part of how you approach the market. An interesting observation here, kind of an exaggerated version of it, because this move that happened yesterday and the drop just happened so aggressively. So what we're seeing here happens a lot in a lot, maybe like less of an unimpressive way, but this is a very dramatic version of that, taking the trade at target and missing some continuation, in this case, a lot. But also an interesting observation, I think, of how, I can observe this, I can be a part of this, I can take that trade off and genuinely not feel anything about that. But if this rolled back on me, it would have, potentially put me in a really weird headspace. Yeah. Economic Mercenary, literally the perfect short entry. I appreciate that. It was right up against value area low and the worst exit. It's a very interesting dynamic of a bit of this is resulting when we look at that and we see how much that went for, how much further that went, because the fact that we even went there, as far as my original idea, it was kind of like my extended target. Like if this gets a little crazy, we could see the other side of that range. And the fact that we went there so directionally in such a large move, and one, I think that was weird that happened that way. And then the fact that there was no type of pullback, no type of counter rotation, that we just went further. Again, I think that this is very much resulting. I had a trade, had an idea, it shaped up perfectly, better than expected, and I took it off where I was intending to. A little bit of potential coping there, because in this specific situation, there actually was not a great reason to hit the exit. We were at target and I was at profit target for the day. Like it was there was reasons that were nice to take it off, but from the perspective of it dropping, getting crushed, no sign of strength, there potentially was some good reasons to, in real time in that situation, to be able to hold on a bit longer. But again, some of this also just resulting because we hit that previous low of day and have some kind of a huge counter rotation. I don't take that off. Then all of a sudden it's, you had so much profits on the table. Why didn't you take that off? And we don't want to get caught up in doing that. Yeah.